morning, good evening. Yesterday, I played this video clip. It was an interview when the late Morgan Tsvangirai was being asked, particularly regarding the weak link revelations, where Chris Dell, the US Ambassador to Zimbabwe, 2004 to 2007, had said that Tsvangirai was a flawed and indecisive character who, if he should get into power, would become an albatross around the nation's neck. Some people didn't like that. Let's be very clear here. Ambassador Dell predicted this between 2004 and 2007. He had only met Morgan Tsvangirai probably a few times, and yet was able to formulate that opinion. Morgan Tsvangirai and company did get into power. They were in the GNU. And they've been in power in the sense that they've been the main opposition in Zimbabwe for a long time. We have got to agree that it is a historic fact that MDC CCC failed to implement the democratic reforms. Morgan Tsvangirai was the leader of the main MDC faction. In 2008 to 2013, during the GNU. And MDC's greatest failure was their failure to implement even one token reform. That is a historic fact. Why some people are denying it beggars belief. There are some things which we can discuss. There are others which we can even agree to disagree. But for us to be discussing, much less disagreeing on historic facts, is a fundamental weakness in Zimbabwean society. And I believe it is at the heart of why we are a failed state. I'll just play a short section of this interview for those who maybe did not hear it yesterday.
Taking everyone by anybody by surprise who will agree on the election.
I have to ask you about this WikiLeaks controversy that happened late last year. WikiLeaks released some cables, not only of party members within your party, but also within the Mugabe government. There was widespread dissent within the Mugabe party, according to these cables that were released. And also it said that even within your party, there were questions about your leadership and the people that you surround yourself with. What's your reaction to those cables?
I mean, it's a regrettable revelation because they were never intended for us to know about what they were saying behind our backs. I'm sure that Mugabe feels as much betrayed as I am. However, in my party, we have said that whatever anyone holds opinion about their leaders, they've one thing to do. If you have no confidence in your leader, you go to a Congress. We've just come out of a Congress, and all the 12 provinces around the country endorsed my leadership. So there may be individual opinions, and those opinions, we've just dismissed them.
But some say that those revelations were a setback to any kind of democratic reforms or democratic improvements in Zimbabwe. Do you agree?
No, I don't think necessarily that those revelations, they merely reveal the attitude which is held by individuals against their leaders. You can't stop. In politics, there is always treachery. But sometimes treachery which you don't know, you can't operate on that basis.
Tell us about your...
This could be...
Well, Ben, what do you think of that?
Good day to you and good day to our viewers. Thank you for joining us. I found you in the middle of a very good, topic that you had just started, and if I may add, I find it very sad and very disheartening to find that the people that are actually suffering are the ones that seem to want to rewrite history just to protect individuals that have failed them, not once, not twice, but on numerous occasions. The MDC had the golden opportunity, like you said, during the GNU. That is a fact. There is absolutely no denying that. I remember we had a one-on-one, session with the pioneers, some of the pioneers of the MDC, and the excuse that they said that they gave us was that we are very sorry. We should have done more. And that was about it. And I'm sorry to say, but that doesn't cut it. You can be sorry, yes, but you cannot then continue to defend that position and want to rewrite history to say they are the best foot forward. They went and done this. What did they do? We are now sounding just like ZANU-PF, who will, defend even a vision that is not even, there. A healthy economy that is not even there.
Well,
That is what we are doing.
To get clarification on that one, how many MDC CCC leaders have acknowledged that they have been a failure?
We had an interview with, I think, Senator Komich. He said, we could have done more as a party. He did not go outright and say they failed, but he admitted they could have done more, or they could have pushed harder, but they didn't. That's the fact.
Well, Komich then must be the only one, and I will have to admit that I didn't hear that interview, because most of the MDC CCC leaders have refused to accept that they sold out during the GNU. The only person who has come close to admitting that they sold out was Professor Arthur Mtambara in his book. But even then, it was more of a passing apology. The truth of the matter is, most of the MDC leaders have refused to accept that the GNU was the golden opportunity to implement the democratic reforms, and they sold out. That is not strong language. It is a fact. Mugabe bribed them with the trappings of high office, and they forgot about the reforms. This has got such serious consequences that I find it ridiculous that Zimbabweans out there seem to think, oh, it doesn't matter. I think that is what I find infuriating.
We must also add that, although they haven't come out directly and said this, we have had, people like David Coulthard, who wrote a book and has admitted to say, participating in rigged elections is mainly because it's greed. At one point, Honorable BT said the same thing. It's just unfortunate that they say something and do the exact opposite. They know that the elections are flawed. They know what needs to be done because they've talked about it. Even on podiums, even at rallies, they have spoken about it. There is no denying the fact that they know and they acknowledge that there is a need to fix our electoral system. But what they are saying and what they are doing is the exact opposite. They say, let us fix and reform a system. But tomorrow they are willing to participate no matter what. That is just, these are the people that we are dealing with. We have to acknowledge that fact. And unfortunately, like what we are saying, the people of Zimbabwe are slow and are not willing to accept this and are willing to defend a position that, has facts, historical facts, like you have just pointed out. So we're not talking something that they didn't say. It is there in black and white. It's a historical fact. It's something you can see, something you can read for yourselves. And it's very, very disheartening. I'm not sure if your mic is turned on.
Oh, sorry about that. What I'm saying here is what David Coulthard said in his book. He was referring to the elections, 2013. He was not referring to the GNU and that they had sold out in the GNU. He made a passing remark on the GNU, but never admitted anything. What he was talking about was the election itself, why they participated. He admitted the process was so flawed, so illegal, that the only logical step was to withdraw. But he did not withdraw because he said they'd failed to form a coalition between MDCN and MDCT. And they feared that if they withdraw, the other side will participate and win the few gravy train seats. And they wanted the gravy train seats. So they participated out of greed. But he did not admit anything concrete on the GNU itself. So to come back to this issue, with hindsight, it is absolutely outrageous that Zimbabweans out there still fail to see that the GNU was the golden opportunity to implement the democratic reforms and to end the ZANU-PF dictatorship. And to come back to the issue we were discussing today, this issue of Morgan Tsvangirai, that he failed to get the reforms implemented, even though he was the leader of the MDC-T, the major faction there. So Ambassador Dell's prediction that if Morgan Tsvangirai was to get into power, he'll become an albatross around the nation's neck was correct. And what I find infuriating is that there are Zimbabweans out there, even now with the benefit of hindsight, who are in denial of it. This is what is wrong with our political system, where individuals would want to deny historic facts. That is what I find to be really desperately disappointing in this particular instance.
Yes, I have to agree with you what the U.S. Ambassador said, and I believe you were spot on. I mean, Morgan Tsvangirai was the head of the organization. He was basically the face of MDC, and he should get stick. And the thing is, they have shown us the character and their characteristics that they say something and do the exact opposite. Here are people that sat down and came up with an organization, and their name suggests who they were, their identity, the movement for democratic change. What change? What have we seen today to suggest that was ever the whole idea? Nothing. 25 years in, there is no change. And again, we find that the people of Zimbabwe have been slow to actually, figuring that they are the ones that are being used in this whole matrix. MDC, out of greed, or the people within MDC, different organizations that are there now, have been participating in rigged elections out of greed. Yes, and talk of reforms here and there, but never really mean it. And like the word you said, they talk about reforms and accept their shortcomings as if it's just a passing through, a drive by. Oh well, we could have done that, and then that's it. Tomorrow they're willing to do the same thing that they have been doing, and now you find the country is always in an election mode. So the ambassador was right for me to say these are very cunning and devious characters. They cannot be trusted anymore. They are saying something, but they're doing the exact opposite. And unfortunately, we deny that, we defend that, and here we are.
Well, I think the other issue that must be raised here is that this is the modus operandi of the Zimbabwean people, the electorate. For the last 2 years, on this platform particularly, we have been discussing the issue of Nelson Chamisa. Did he lie when he said he had plugged the vote-rigging loopholes? The day after voting was done, he was the one who was complaining that ZANU-PF had rigged the elections. The very thing that he had said he had plugged all the vote-rigging loopholes. So he was lying. And yet we've got some people, even now, with the benefit of hindsight, who still refuse to accept that Chamisa is a liar. If you ask me, I think this is at the heart of why Zimbabwe is a failed state. A nation that cannot deal with facts and reality because they are unpalatable, pretend that they are not happening, those things, those events are not happening, is a nation that is in serious trouble. We cannot keep on kicking the problem down the road. That is the problem with our culture. It's almost a cultural thing, a Zimbabwean black majority thing. Ian Smith was right when he predicted in 1975 that if the people of Zimbabwe achieved black majority rule, people will be walking on sewage and think it normal. That is the explanation for it. Anything that is unpleasant, we pretend it's not happening. We deny it. And after denying it for a long while, and the problem is only getting worse, our next approach is to find somebody else to blame for our problems. If it's ZANU-PF, blame it on the sanctions. If it is the opposition, blame it on ZANU-PF. And meanwhile, the problem only gets worse. And I believe if we do not snap out of that mentality, Zimbabwe is doomed. I go back to the issue that I raised at the beginning of this discussion, that when I played the video that I'm showing on the screen there, and those of you who are interested, they can get the full detail of that if you Google from the title that is on the screen there. When I started playing it, I was only referring to the historic facts. We are talking about Morgan Tsvangirai. He was a flawed character, indecisive. And when he got into power, he became an albatross around the nation's neck. That is a historic fact. We are still in this mess today because MDC, CCC have failed to implement even one token reform. Why some people deny something that is well established, well supported by documentary evidence, beggars belief. We should not be discussing that. That is a historic fact. Why are you denying it? That is my parting word to the people of Zimbabwe tonight. Thank you, Ben. Do you want to give your closing remarks?
Thank you. In closing, I would want to say, for democracy to work, it is the people who must demand accountability from their leaders. But if the people are there to defend their leaders, we are starting another dictatorship. We are giving absolute power to our leaders. That is just what we are doing. Until we demand answers and accountability, Zimbabwe will never be a healthy and functioning country. Let's forget about that. Let's stop playing shop. We have to do our part, and that is to demand from our leaders. And from there, we get, leadership that is for the people and by the people. A leadership that knows that if we do not bring forth results, the people will boot us out. So I say to my fellow citizens, unless we start asking the serious questions from our leaders, whether it be ZANU-PF, whether it be the Triple C, MDC, or whatever, Lord, unless we start asking the true and hard questions, Zimbabwe will be stuck in this here forever place. We'll be stuck in this mud for a very, very long time. Food for thought. The choice is ours. Thank you.
I would like to close by emphasizing here that we do not have quality leaders because we do not have a quality electorate. If you are still denying that Chamisa lied, then honestly, you should not even have the vote. Because democracy, for democracy to function, you need knowledgeable. The people must be knowledgeable, educated, and objective. And if you are not objective, you should really not have the vote. Because you will keep on voting for corrupt, incompetent, and utterly useless leaders. The reason why ZANU-PF leaders have got away with murder, Triple C, MDC leaders have been corrupt, incompetent, and utterly useless, and yet they are still in power, is because we've got an electorate that will not face the facts. I repeat, we should not be arguing about Morgan Tsvangirai, was he a flawed and indecisive character who, when he got into power, became an albatross around the nation's neck. We know that happened. People like Ambassador Dell was able to suss it out after meeting him a few times before he even was in power. And yet we have got the backing, the historic backing, the facts, and we are still in denial. That is a recipe for disaster. Think about it. Thank you very much. Have a good night.